Welcome everybody to the first of many of the D.A Speaks series. My name is Dylan Anglade. I am the founder of D.A Speaks, a storytelling venture I started to give a group of black and brown people opportunity to share their story, whether you define yourself as the nine to fiver or entrepreneur. I believe in everybody being able to advocate for themselves. And how do we do that? Through the spoken word, through the written word as well. So I like to ask people questions and help them narrate their stories. I am pleased to be joined by somebody who I consider to be not just a colleague, but a mentor. I've watched this woman grow, at least in certain areas in the past, and I believe in her cause. I believe in what she does and her ability to lead men and women and little boys and girls. So I want to say thank you to a educator, a newly minted author, and a good friend for joining me. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Laquita Bolden.
Thank you, Dylan, so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm proud of you too. I'm happy that you're stepping out. I've seen the growth in you as well, and to even be a part of this right now is an example of your hard work. Like this was the thought and a conversation between us. Just everything you've been doing, the leadership, wanting more, and like to see you doing that. I'm very, very proud of you.
Definitely, and I appreciate Laquita for allowing me to, do the work of, the nice quote behind me, which is respect, protect, and love the black woman. Laquita, you have definitely been somebody who has been engaging with the youth. You have been very intentional with your leadership in terms of helping students understand their power, understanding where they matter, and that kind of inspired what we're going to talk about a little bit later on. But let's tell the people who is Laquita. Like, where did you start? I think LeBron kind of missed the tweet when he said just a couple of kids from Ohio. So, I think he missed to add your name. So let's start there.
Yeah, LeBron definitely forgot to add my name. So I'm born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. That's where all my family live. I also went to college there at the State University, so Cleveland State University. I'm a Viking, and I got my master's and my bachelor's from there. So I also graduated and attended Cleveland Public Schools, and then that was actually my first teaching job. So in 2014, after I graduated with my bachelor's in biology, I ended up walking straight into the classroom. So I taught at a couple Cleveland public schools for about 4 years before,
Mm,
I ended up leaving and coming to New York.
4 years. Ooh. So you basically spent an extra college semester, extra college career there. How would you describe the public school setting in Cleveland, in Ohio, for you?
What's crazy is that growing up, like, I attended schools on the west side of Cleveland, so I feel like I always had really good experiences. I had good teachers. Of course, we were a low performing district, so I didn't really understand what that meant until I got to college. Like, it was a lot of things I had to teach myself on my own because, just the academics are just different, and becoming an educator, I understood the struggle of my teachers trying to accommodate the students that they service. So, I had a great experience going to Cleveland Public Schools. My mom was a major advocate for it. Like, she loved that we went there. We graduated from Cleveland Public Schools. She really believed in the school system, and it was very supportive. I also had a brother who had a mental disability, and the school, like the district was very supportive for him. So that experience wasn't too bad, but becoming an educator in that district, I started really realizing the gaps in learning and how that really impacts our students being able to not just get to college, but get through college.
Yes, definitely. Sometimes I think we sometimes forget the next step part, the following up, right? So it's easy. I don't say it's easy, but it's easy for us to say yes, let's get you to college, but the work it takes to maintain themselves in college, right? That's a whole different story. Um, but you did say like you eventually you pushed out. I feel like you kind of felt like you maximized your time in Cleveland, so you decided to make the move to the Big Apple, and you came to New York. Um, so you're coming out. So you're coming out of the Cleveland school system. You got your bachelor's, you got your master's, and then you decided, okay, I'm going ready for the Big Apple. So now, how was that experience coming to teach in New York's public schools? Um, I can only imagine the differences.
Lord, so it definitely was a difference. And what's crazy is that what made me decide to leave was that's actually where my love for curriculum started. So before I left in 2007, in 2018, well, actually 2017, my company became a thought, which was My Little
Mm,
Scientist. But by the time I left, I had created my LLC. But I was ready for curriculum. Like I didn't want to be in education in the classroom anymore. I felt like my purpose was outside of the classroom because the connections that I have with my students was always like talking about life skills, like real things that, real life situations and how to survive in the real world. And that's where my passion led to it. And I was so like, I mean, literally, I was like, I'm not going to the classroom. I had got offered so many teaching positions here, and I was like, nope, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. So finally, I said, I had to ask God. I said, okay, God, your will, not mine. So do you need me to be in the classroom for another year? Like, is this what I'm supposed to do? So I did one of them hard prayers, and I told God, I said, God, if I'm going, this is what I need. This is what I need. I gave him a certain amount. I gave him a number of salary that I needed in order to go back into this classroom. So I ended up getting a position that I didn't even apply for. So I'm a part of Teach for America. So I ended up meeting up with one of the principals. He's seen my resume from Uncommon Charter Schools, and he offered me a position. And he said, listen, I know you don't want to teach. He's like, we can build you as a leader. So if you come here and teach for a year, we will train you to be in a leadership position by next year. And God had given me almost to the exact number that I asked for to go for my offer. So I was like, okay,
amen.
God, I was like, okay, it's not exactly what I wanted to do, but sometimes it's not about our will, it's about his. There was something he needed me. He needed me in that classroom for another year. So I said, you know what, God, I'll go. So that's how I ended up coming here. And then teaching at a charter school was when I realized that I was done with the classroom.
Just so we clear, everybody, there is a big difference between the public schools and charter schools. Ooh,
Yes,
oof.
yes. And it really helped. I see how God was really molding my mission. Like the idea of My Little Scientist before it left Ohio was a curriculum, right? I already knew about culturally responsive teaching because my students that I service in Ohio were so behind grade levels. Like I would have to differentiate in so many different ways to meet the needs of my students. I started getting creative. Like I would create games. And like it was fun. Like, and I was like, I want to do curriculum. I want to make culturally responsive curriculum. And then when I started teaching it Uncommon, it really helped me realize the mission, like the mission behind it. It was bigger than just culturally responsive teaching or curriculum. It was about giving our students a voice. And just being at Uncommon Schools, building such a good relationship with my students and watching their struggles of being in such a very systematic school system, and watch how they fought for it. It really inspired me. It really inspired me to leave my comfort zone and to start making a way to give them a voice.
Amen. I mean, I'm always here for giving students a voice. Um, you talked about just having to go through you going through that experience. For the people who are going to be at home, not knowing our history, you eventually landed. I would say something non-traditional, which is a partnership with the school system, and you ended up at a nonprofit. So, can you kind of talk about your experience with the nonprofits? Um, and I know you're a go-getter. Like you're not really for the whole. You're not really. I wouldn't say you're for working for somebody, but eventually you did kind of land to where you're working with the students. So how did you land, I guess, in nonprofits as opposed to the Department of Education?
So it was literally an opportunity. Again, it was a new position. There, my struggle. Okay, it was a major pay cut, but I was willing to take it because it was going to give me experience that I needed. So that's where we met, with Good Shepherd. And working there allowed me the experience I needed to learn how to do curriculum, how to, to provide observations, those type of things. So it gave me a lot of skills that I needed to, eventually transition and start creating my own spaces outside of other organizations. So the nonprofit was definitely, I mean, it had its struggles financially, but it purpose wise, mission wise, the people that I met, that I'm still close to today, including you, it was definitely what I needed to kind of re-spark that light in me, because I had lost that passion a little bit with being in a classroom and definitely being at that charter school. My light had dimmed a little bit. So it was very refreshing, coming to Good Shepherd Services and meeting people that were more mission aligned. So that transitioned me well.
Definitely did. But the thing about transitions is you never know when it can actually, rear its head on the other side of it for yourself, right? So you go through this experience, Laquita, and you eventually do land at Good Shepherd Services. You're starting to mentor, not just you start to meet some of the students in these different areas in the after school division, elementary, middle school. Eventually though we get to 2020 where I think everybody's story kind of happens the same way, which ironically is this exact week, right? 1 year ago, where I know it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
We had Mayor de Blasio announcing that the schools are shut down. And for the people at home, if you're not aware, most nonprofits are who don't own their own buildings are in partnership with some of the community schools or some charter schools, with the Department of Education, certain public schools. So I know for myself, that was kind of like my last week in a specific building with students, right? I know that was kind of like the beginning of like your transition. So eventually you transition out of Good Shepherd Services, and then you eventually start to push forward your own idea. You talked about My Little Scientist. You eventually you had developed your LLC in Cleveland. You come to the Big Apple. Why was it now the time to actually start? Not just curriculum, but also your story.
I think now this pandemic is because of the exact moment that we're in. This pandemic really helped refocus people's purpose, because we went through a major world shift where day to day, where your joy was not based on your success, it was really based on your happiness and your peace. And when you dig into that it also that dives into purpose. So it really resurfaced. It really, again, it was like amazing how you see how God like aligns things for you, because being in that space with Good Shepherd reigniting that mission, that passion in me, and then the quarantine allowing me the time to do that. Literally, it took, when I left Uncommon, I finally had a week off. I left my job, uh and I wrote my book in 3 days. I wrote my first book in the 3 days that I had to finally have my mind mentally cleared. I wrote the book that I've been thinking about for 3 years in 3 days. So I realized how much freedom, having the freedom of my time and my mind, was the key to my success. And now my vision has shifted. Is now I need to be working to make sure I have that freedom of mind. And honestly, working for other people, or having, I mean, listen, an entrepreneur is somebody that's willing to work 80 hours for themselves so they don't have to work 40 hours for no one else. And of course,
Talk
like,
about it.
you know how I be, okay? So it's like, it's a lot of work, but it's so passion driven. Like, I can be up all day responding to people on my social media, reaching out to other, you know what I'm saying? Like, making connections for my book all day versus punching a clock for someone else. So, it just, the quarantine really resurfaced that for me. And now, like, that is my goal. So I finally dropped my book. It gave me the courage to finally release my book, and really push that moving forward, because I was scared. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. Like, there was some fear and anxiety. There was some worry about perfection. But my pastor Darius Daniels from the Change Church says that
Hmm.
procrastination Perfection is procrastination. So I had to realize, like, listen, God gave me a story. I did the best to what I can do, but it's my job to put that story out there. So, I know my story. My books are going to be, it's a learning process for me. So as I learn new things, I know that my second book should be better than my first book. If not, I'm not changing, I'm not growing. So I'm literally excited about my next story.
Listen, I would love to tell everybody at home about your story, but unfortunately, mine is in the mail. I did order it. Don't come after me. Like I did order it online. I'm gonna everybody. Don't worry. I'll put the Amazon link for us. But so far, you're distributing at Amazon. Can you talk about some of the other areas where you're distributing your book and just how is this journey for you right now? From like meeting with a publisher, to speaking with the illustrator. So kind of talk about that process for yourself.
So it just was so, I started with a business consultant. That wasn't the best avenue for me, but it's worked for other people. So I really just honestly, I was on websites like Fiverr. The one thing my business consultant did do was connect me with my illustrator. And it just happened to be like he does the graphic design for Cavs, the Cavaliers. Like it just happened to be that way. He's a really good guy. So he ended up doing my illustrations for me. But everything else I had to do on my own. Like I had to I remember living here and just randomly finding a group of women that write in Manhattan, and they had a space every week that if you signed up on Eventbrite, like you could go because I'm not a writer. Like this is the first book I ever wrote in my life. So I just went. I went. I didn't know anybody there. I signed up for it. I went. They gave us moments where we wrote and then people would have a break and we could talk. I made some connections and it was just like I surrounded myself around what I wanted to do. Like, cause God was like, you got to tell this story, you and only you. So once I wrote my book, I found like freelance author editors on like Fiverr. They edited my book. I also found Fiverr is like the best place ever because you can find quality people doing just freelance work. And literally that I had somebody edit my book, publish it on, put everything formatted for me online. I didn't have to do any of those things, and it was just finding the resources and taking the chances, so I've been able to refer them to other people and I know that they're good because I've used them. And yeah, it's been a journey, but I'm learning it all on my own, and that's the best thing about it is I know how to do it. My second book gonna be smooth.
Hey, who says Cleveland doesn't employ good people now? That sounds good. Shout out to the graphic designer. But no, that definitely sounds amazing. It sounds amazing that you're able to find these things. You put it out there in the atmosphere. You manifested it, and you didn't just settle. A lot of times, I think we kind of have these ideas, but we settle on how we can go about those ideas, and it might not always be the best product. But like I said, you found a good resource called Fiverr. Let's give them their credit. You had a lot of freelance editors that you talked about. Um, so you talked about the book, and it's called My Little Scientist. One of the things you said was it's very big for students to know that they matter, right? That they have a voice. What inspired My Little Scientist, and why specifically science? Is it because you? Well, go ahead. You tell it.
Yes, well, science is my natural passion. It's also what I have my bachelor's in, but I just also always had a natural love for science. So the name My Little Scientist came to me, um, my passion for science started in middle school, but I had the name of my company in my mind since like my freshman year of college. And it just was like science was my passion, and being a woman in science and experiencing my own things in college with like being just not just a woman, but a Black American woman in science and feeling like people viewed me as like, not really being that smart and stuff like, I had my own challenges. And if I didn't have other people around me that looked like me in those moments to help me through those times, like I probably wouldn't have graduated with my bachelor's in biology, or I wouldn't have my natural passion that I do for science. So I want to share that experience with my other students. Like I feel like we should be represented. And of course, we've come a long way. Like there's definitely way more representation in the STEM fields than there were before. But I feel like it's still something that's not really even expressed at a younger age. Like, at that time, they're not thinking about being scientists or engineers. Like, they're thinking about being teachers, the people that they see around them, right? So it's like, if we can show them, if we can naturally spark that passion in them so young for science, like, we would have more people that we would have more little kids walking around saying they want to be a scientist or a chemist, so that's what I'm pushing for. I want to see those kids wanting to be, just being excited about being in those STEM positions as well. So
Definitely. And so I know are kind of gearing up towards the end of our interview. But what is your final message to not just, the little girls, all the students that you talked about, all, quite frankly, all the Black women that you can inspire and you can influence by writing this novel? So what's your final message to everybody as I send everybody to the Amazon link and other distributors for My Little Scientist?
we are the future, and we are responsible for preparing the future as educators, as parents, as leaders and mentors. And we want to make sure that we're instilling all good things into our kids. So we want to push them to follow their dreams and their passions. And we do that by leading by example. So you can't expect your kids to want to step out if you're not willing to. So we got to lead by example. And I really believe as one, we're gonna dominate this world, and that's what they're scared of. So we got to keep pushing for that.